Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the July 13th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Trustees for the School Town of Speedway. We are operating from a 13-item agenda. And the first item on the agenda this evening is to approve the minutes of the meeting from last month, June 8, 2021.
Mr. President, I'll move that we approve the minutes from the June 8, 2021 meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, would all in favor please indicate? And that passes unanimously. So we'll pause and we'll sign the 2 copies now.
Coasters. Minutes are signed.
Thank you very much. The second item on the agenda this evening is an update on the return to instruction plan for the coming 21-22 academic year.
Thank you, Mr. President. Andrea McIntosh, John Designee, and myself, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for guidance from the Marion County Health Department. Just to reiterate on what we go by not just what the state tells us or what the CDC, which they released new information this past weekend. But the Marion County Health Department with Dr. Virginia Kane has been meeting with her staff over the last few days, and we have a meeting tomorrow to go through reentry plans and their guidance on what we're doing for Marion County. So the 11 superintendents will be in a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock, getting information to see what direction we go. We do have our plans that we've been living by since, well, a few months ago. They're up on our website, and we're going to update those as soon as possible once we get that information. So it's going to be a waiting game till tomorrow, and I have a feeling, just knowing what we've gone through in the last 18 months, it might change again before August 3rd. I mean, just wait. But we will continue to follow guidance and the recommendations of what the health department tells us, what's going on, and what their suggestions are. Then we'll bring it back for some feedback and let us all discuss those things at that time. So the instructional plan is up for right now, and the best thing I can say is we're on a status quo right now from where we were last month.
Which is full in-person attendance.
Full in person. And while I'm on that, I'll just go ahead and start here. Our online registration is open right now. So if anybody's listening, we are going to mass shoot out communication to everybody starting the end of this week and next week. It is open right now for online registration.
But that's register online for in-person school.
In person, right. To roll into, it's online, absolutely. Our online registration for in-person, 183 days with a teacher in front of your kids. We're going to follow the guidelines, and we've been doing that since August 5th of last year also. We were on full force last year, August 5th. Only a couple schools around us were able to do that. And I can go on forever for that, but we are planning on going back, and we are ready for that to happen.
Can I add something to that, Dr. Treble, and that is if you're new to Speedway, you will go online and register, but there will be appointments made with the principals at each school to enroll new students to Speedway in schools, and it's taking place as we speak. So that process has already started, but you go online and you say that you want to register in Speedway schools, and you set up an appointment with the principal to enroll into the elementary, junior high, or high school.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you both. The third item on the agenda this evening is the presentation of drafts of the school calendars for the 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25 academic years.
Enclosed are proposed one-year school calendars for the next 3 succeeding school years. The calendars reflect the same pattern as our past 3 one-year school calendars. Just to let everyone know, I've never been aware of any school calendar which makes everybody happy. I do know, though, that giving information up front and letting people plan for the future is the best bet. But we've had feedback from our people, and the last 6 years since I've been here, we've done 2-3 sets, and since we've had the balanced calendar and we moved away from the 2 weeks of spring break, people have been pretty happy. So some of the criteria around this, and then I'll give some time here for us to discuss this. We are a 183-day school year in person with a teacher in front of their kids. And just to let everybody know, last year, in small class sizes with what we believe is a phenomenal staff, great leadership that we're going to continue to do what our tradition's all about, put a great teacher in front of kids. 3 days longer than the rest of the state. And I just need to talk about our learning pattern that was disrupted last year. Since August 5th, yes, we had students in our classrooms, but they were in masks. And if you've ever been in a classroom with kids in masks, it was different last year. It just was. We were disrupted from November all the way till the second week in January, to where our students didn't have that face-to-face instruction, or I guess mask to mask. And let's not forget the year before that, we lost from March 13th all the way down to the end. We've been disrupted. And the one thing that Speedway Schools that I'm proud about is we eliminate disruptions in our learning patterns. So we have our work cut out for us, and we understand that, but we believe in what we're doing. We believe putting that teacher in front. And these calendars, again, it's a calendar, but there's 183 days. I'd like to get this out in front of people so they can plan ahead all the way up to 24-25. We will not have Speedway students attending during June and July. That was one of the kind of the rules or the guidelines we went off of. And of course, Corporation Day is the second most important holiday after Christmas. So we're not going to be in school that day. It causes us a little wrench. I know. Also, week-long break for October, week-long for Thanksgiving, the travel day for Monday, or the Friday and the Monday for spring break. And everything could change around commencement because of the race too. We just know we need to be flexible. We can't just say this is when graduation is until we get a little closer. Things change. So these are the 3 years, the 3 sets, single years here. My recommendation is for you to take a look and possibly make a recommendation to approve these so we can get them out in front of our people.
Is there a motion or any discussion we want to have about these proposed calendars?
I'll move so then we can have the discussion. I move that we approve the drafts of the calendars for the next 3 years.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
The only discussion point that I would raise is I think one of them in particular has a terrible Christmas break. And so people need to just kind of plan. I mean, you know, I tried to mess around with, you know, any way that could not be given. But if you don't want to go to school in July,
Yep.
and you don't want to go to school in June, and then that's, you know, that's where it happens. And so, you know, I think it's when we come around and people are rah, rah, rah about the Christmas break holiday, then it's like, yeah, but, you know, here's these other things that our teachers, our people in the schools have deemed to be important. And so,
The range everywhere I've been is from 7 to 10 days. In the perfect calendar year, you get the 2 full weeks off of the 3
which we
weekends.
almost never do. And that's, and that's just kind of, that's part of the thing when you have when we'd be starting, July 29th, like a bunch of schools are. And then you get your,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And that year or two that we did that, people absolutely hated it. So,
Yeah, so,
just throwing it out here in 2021.
Is there any other commentary or discussion on the proposed calendars? Would you like to vote to approve them? Okay, would all those in favor please signify by raising a hand? All right, and those calendars as proposed pass unanimously. The fourth item on the agenda this evening is to approve an agreement with AdTech for E-rate services for our technology.
We are ending our 3-year contract with them. This is a service that is administrative service for the federal E-rate program. So we send our information to them, and they have a very low cost, a couple $1,000s, and they're able to get us things such as to fill out this service. For the example, last year we spent $109,000 of technology, and with E-rate, they paid $87,000 of it. So it really knocks it down to almost less than 20%. The year before that, we were up in the $200,000 range, and we got about $175,000. So in general, this is a service that we're able to use, and my recommendation is to continue this agreement with them for the next 3 years.
Is there a motion from the board on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with AdTech for the E-rate.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions that we'd like to ask concerning this contract?
I think for the amount that we pay, we get an awful lot of expertise, and there's a lot of return on that, so that's great.
Yep. Hearing and seeing no other discussion, if all those in favor of approving this contract with AdTech would signify by raising a hand. And that passes unanimously. We're now on to the fifth item in our agenda, which is to approve an agreement for occupational therapy services.
From time to time, we come and we just want to approve it through the board. When our students' needs change or our student population change, we have to adjust a little bit on what we need. At this point in time, our pre-K and K, we have an increase in growth on students with needs in this. So my recommendation is to approve additional 8 hours for our OT services, occupational therapy services, where Katrina Michael is licensed. She's retired. She's willing to come back for just those 8 hours to work with those kids. So again, my recommendation is to approve this agreement for additional service for occupational therapy.
Is there a motion from the board about this agreement?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agreement for occupational therapy services as presented.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion or questions on the agreement? Hearing and seeing none, if those who are in favor of approving this agreement for OT services would please signify by raising a hand. And that passes unanimously. The sixth item on today's agenda is to designate some equipment as surplus in order for us to dispose of it.
Well, this is an interesting request, but due to the fact that March 13th, we kind of moved our equipment from sitting together and teaching reading and like kidney tables and whatnot. We moved to other desks, and now we're moving back to kidney tables. And now we're waiting until tomorrow to see if we need kidney tables or regular desks. So really what's enclosed, what's enclosed here is really just the technology side, which, believe it or not, starting my 8th year, our Chromebooks now have had 5 to 6, and just because we take care of our equipment here, it's time that we're going to start having some Chromebooks that they're just not making anymore. So most of your list on this is just old Chromebooks. I would just, for surplus of disposal. Regarding technology items, just so everyone can always hear it, we retain the vendor to destroy all related memory components if there is, with Chromebooks not, and we'll make sure we drill holes through all of it so there's nothing that's leaked out on personal information. So my recommendation is to approve the designation of equipment for surplus for disposal.
Is there a motion from the board?
I'll move that we designate this listed equipment as surplus for disposal.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments about this motion? All right, would all members of the board who are in favor of approving this designation for the equipment to be treated as surplus for disposal, please signify by raising a hand. And that passes unanimously. The 7th item in our agenda, in our agenda this evening is to update some policies as recommended by ISBA.
And the one policy that I'd like to bring to your attention is the Teacher Appreciation Grant. And this is the board must annually adopt a policy on the amount of stipends that will be given to the highly effective versus and effective teachers. Our current policy matches the state recommendation and gives a highly effective teacher 25% more than an effective teacher. The recommendation is to approve this Teacher Appreciation Grant, and there's no changes. It just allows us to apply for it annually.
Is there a motion for this policy?
I move that we approve the board policy for teacher appreciation grants.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Are there comments or questions concerning the board's policy? All right, would all those in favor of adopting this policy please signify by raising a hand? And that passes unanimously. The 8th item in the agenda for the evening is to discuss the 2022 budget assumptions.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for giving the leeway to the administration, the team, for us to be able to move our corporation in a direction that's best for kids. And I can't say that enough, that student instruction is always the focal point on everything we decide to do. So when we're talking about the money, we want to make sure that we are being responsible and we're putting it in the classrooms at all times. Number 2, I'd like to remind people our online registration for in-person learning is open right now. So I'm going to say that a few more times, just to make sure that gets out. A long time ago, a few years ago, we started with a general fund. That's moved while we've all been at the table here, that it moved into different silos called the Education Fund, the Operations Fund, 2 funds that we work out of. Also, we'll be discussing the next 2 months is the Referendum Fund, debt services, and then in general, the total tax rate. The end game for this, and where I want to be able to tell not just the story, but tell the facts and make sure people understand where the money's going and whatnot, is that the end game is our tax rate is 0.9111. We are typically right around that each and every year, and that is, I believe, my job to make sure we require the least from our taxpayers and we give them the best bang for their buck. And that's what we've been doing for the last few years here at Speedway Schools, and we're going to continue that. But some of the assumptions that we'll start building the budget on is the normal and the typical, that we'll operate on a balanced budget, maintain our cash balance, a slight increase in health insurance. Let me pause for a second. We were flatlined for a few months here recently. It looks like our health insurance will pop up, and that's something that we can expect. We knew that was going to happen. We hope we can stay under a small number, though. A small number, they'll start at 32% increase because that's what health insurance companies do. We'll say, no way, 12%, and we'll hopefully negotiate down low because that changes everything we have. That's a lot of money that moves around here that we don't know until in a couple months. So health insurance, my prediction is hopefully it'll be under 5%. Okay, 6, put it on record, hopefully under 6%. State support will slightly increase by per student. Our ADM is our ADM is our ADM. And I'm going to tell people, and I'm going to make sure people understand that each student's important. Our ADM is our membership, which means how many students go to Speedway. Last year, we floated around 1780. We were hoping around 1820, but that pandemic thing hit. So we predict, and Mr. Disney and I both, we talk about this, I don't know, 6 hours out of the 8 hours a day, wondering. So again, online registration is open right now. Make sure you get your kids registered. But we're going to get a 2.4% increase from the state, and that means per student of the funds that they're going to give us, and 3.8 for the second year because the budget's run in 2 years. So we're able to use those numbers with our ADM, with our assessed value, and you put it in the formula, and you kind of get a take of how much money we're going to have revenue coming in. So that's the state increase, health insurance, maintain our cash balance. That's all in the education fund, along with our 125 plus teachers, administration, and other personnel. That's where the big chunk of the money comes from. We're going to be working on that for the next 2 months. Operations fund, here in a few minutes I'll talk about the capital asset plan that goes inside of the operations fund that we have to balance how that works out in the end. But the operations fund, again, we will make sure that we focus on the maintenance of facilities, technology, transportation, and flexibility in our staffing. Also, the fund will operate a balanced budget, and the parameters to use this fund will require constant review and attention, especially with the pandemic still sitting on top of us. The operation fund was 0.3544. Okay, and that's one piece of it. The second is the referendum fund. We can get asked for up to 59 cents, according to what was passed a few years ago, almost 5 now at this point in time. Our referendum, we only asked 0.5029, so we're underneath what we even ask each and every year, and we'll continue that. Our debt service has changed a little bit, and that's because we added the wing at Newbie. We expected it was going to go up almost 9 cents, and we got just a great deal. We got about 0.0539. So you add all three of those up, you got 0.9111, and that's where we're at. We're one of the lowest around, and that is those are the principles I go by of making sure that we're balanced. We have cash balance. If things happen, we can survive for multiple months on how we are living right now. But just like in any family, any household, when things change, you have to be able to adjust, and we're in a pretty good position of that right now. So those are the 2022 budget assumptions at this time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions about the budget assumptions? All right, then moving on to the ninth item on the agenda. It's to authorize publication of the 2022 Capital Assets Plan.
Well, this is old news now. I used to always open, here's the new thing, but we've been doing this for a few years. This is the authorization of the 22 Capital Assets Plan that, as I just said, fits inside of the Operations Fund. But this is where anything that's over $10,000 needs to be put in this plan, which we have multiple things that I'll talk about later about this. It's also a few different things, save some time. We only have to advertise in one time versus we used to have to do this 2 times. And they just made it a little more streamlined. So that was good for the asset plan. Before sharing the details of the 22 plan, let me just say that the Newbie project is complete. It was, I put in my notes, on budget. We were actually a little under budget, which is amazing. I don't know if any project's ever 100% complete. If you ever build anything, you always know that it's like 99.9, but the punch list is, I think at this point in time, I haven't heard anything in about 3 months. So does that mean we're at 100%? I think so. But I like to say we're done. We had a few hiccups at the very end, but we got it done. And the kids were able to use those classrooms, and that was the point, to make sure that we were able to put teachers in classrooms, here again, our focus, and let them go to work. So that is completed. One thing, because of the pandemic, I don't know if people know that Jordan Auditorium had new speakers. We went ahead and moved forward on that. It was a little under $10,000, and we got a really good deal on that. But there are new speakers in our auditorium, and also the big news was the high school gym AC project is complete, and I believe we were all cold for graduation. The goal was to have everybody have a blanket, so I think we came pretty close on that. It's one of those things, people that come and visit, they always, with the AC running, it was a few months for volleyball, and of course, at the end, they're like, oh, we never knew it wasn't air conditioned. It was like one of those deals, so I'm
Both my
pleased.
kids who, were soccer players, so we weren't in the gym in the fall, we're like, there wasn't air? Like, what?
Some of you guys were in there for volleyball for the last, I don't know, since 1985?
Yeah.
Before that? Maybe?
Before that.
Maybe before that. But I remember the days of sitting in volleyball as being present, and it was, let's just say, warm. Warm as all get out. Okay, so anyway, that project's completed. And just to say, the safety doors have been installed, new LED lights in the high school gym and the junior high, new chillers at Allison, new chiller at Wheeler, new chiller at Newby. The outdoor lighting security has all been upgraded across the board. We're getting things taken care of that I hope will last for 20-plus years. And it looks really, really nice. And it's one of those deals, the lights, to me, I still have a little tear in my eye every time I drive by the high school because I remember what it looked like before. It was really dingy and kind of a dim look. It looks nice and poppy. So all those things are done, but let's move forward. The Speedway High School and then Fisher and Speedway Junior High School entryways will be our next focus. Right now, this will entail adding security doors, improving the front office space to be able to secure the area from the rest of the building. The front entry area was designed in the 60s and the 40s, 1948, well, before that even. And it's time to improve that safety. And as we're looking at Mark Beebe and Lancer Beebe, who we use for the Newbie project, he came in and we had a nice conversation. So I'm going to bring you more information on that to move forward. There's also a thing called the safety grant that we could supplement with this that maybe we'll be able to do a match of up to $200,000. So I wish I could tell you construction prices are low right now, but they're just not. And I think anybody understands that, what's going on. So I think this is a need for us and to move forward, and it's not making everything razzle-dazzle. It's just to the point of it's a safety concern, so people will have to go in to check in. In today's world, I think it's really important that we do that. Other areas of improvement will always use this money for upgrading technology, server switches, wireless equipment, facility equipment, and possible parking lot resurface. That's not a fun thing to talk about, but eventually, if, just take note of the high school parking lot. That's probably next on the list. And that is my report for the capital asset.
Is there a motion from a member of the board concerning the publication of the capital asset plan?
I move that we authorize publication of the 2022 capital asset plan.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion or are there questions concerning the capital asset plan as presented? Okay. Would all those in favor of approval of this, of publication for the capital asset plan for 2022, please signify. And that passes unanimously. The 10th item on the agenda this evening is the acknowledgement of the grants that we've received in the past month, and that total is $219,544.38.
Very much.
Thank you.
The 11th item on the agenda this evening is the personnel report.
Mr. President, it's been a busy month with personnel. We have several items for your consideration, for the board's consideration. We have the resignations in your packet of Nick Beard, who was a social studies teacher at the high school, Kim Jones, who was a cafeteria worker at the junior high, and Christina Menendez is an assistant swim coach at Speedway High School. For employment, we have several people that we're recommending. Tracy Young, an instructional coach at Allison Elementary. Kristen Young, no relation, who will be an elementary teacher for us. Kelly Shue, who will be an elementary teacher for us. Christine Aguiar, who will be recommended as a Spanish teacher at Speedway High School. Scott Morrow, social studies teacher at Speedway High School. Brady Nyland, who will be our first strength coach at Speedway Schools. Cynthia McCleahey, who is the secretary at Allison Elementary. Jesus Ruvalcaba, who will be for the posted position of English Language, Family, and Community Engagement Liaison. Howard Dorsey, a high school homeschool advisor, posted position. And Ronald Ross, social emotional behavior mentor in our elementary schools. And Claudia McClure for a 6-hour cafeteria position. And there's a volunteer coach that John Philip Clay, who's going to volunteer as a junior high school. In addition to that, in your packet is our ECA, extracurricular positions. And this time of year, there's a lot of movement in those extracurricular positions. And if you see the, on your document, those items that are returning from year to year are listed in black ink. They just roll over from the previous year to the next year. And that's the majority of the positions. The positions being recommended listed in blue ink are new to that position, but are current Speedway employees. And then those positions listed in green ink are new employees to the corporation. And it is a constant ongoing job to try to fill some of these positions. So even though we will, I will make a recommendation that we approve all those, we're probably not done. There's going to be more of those in the end. I'd also like to recommend as a additional boys soccer assistant coach position at the high school. Our numbers in boys soccer at the high school have grown to 55 student athletes, which is incredible, which is great, making it the largest team that we currently have at the high school. And we only currently have 2 paid positions, so we're recommending that we add a coach position at the high school. So my recommendation is we approve the personnel report as presented. I'm able to answer any questions that you have.
I'll move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or is there any discussion about the personnel report as presented?
Just one thought. I'd like to thank John, you, and all involved. I know that it's a puzzle trying to put together, and pieces fall off the side of the table, and you got to find some new ones and so on. But thanks to you and the other administrators and all that's been done, the time spent this summer trying to fill these positions with quality people.
Thank you. I will add to that is I've been doing this for a little bit now, and it's probably as quality as individuals that we've ever added. I'm really excited about what we're bringing to the table in Speedway schools. It's really, the future is bright.
Any further from the board? Would all those in favor of approving the personnel report as presented, please signify by raising a hand. And that passes unanimously. The 12th item on the agenda is to recognize visitors and/or other business. Is there any other business to bring before the board? There apparently is not, and so we as a board will adjourn to go approve claims. Thank you all very much.